Ready? Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Theo Carrasco. Theo's actually the owner, part owner of the Lost Lay. He has some stake in other businesses as well. He's been an entrepreneur pretty much since high school, college?
High school, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
High school, yeah.
Further back, if I look back, man, I think I started cutting grasses for people for free, and that was a business too at like 10 years old. Yeah.
Dude, the entrepreneurialism is in his blood. So we're going to talk to Theo about what it's like being a business owner in Austin, and how the city's been helping or hurting him, and how the shutdowns have affected his business. And just before we go any further, both of us, we're not wearing masks because none of us have coronavirus, and we're both extremely healthy. But that doesn't mean that I'm not opposed to wearing a mask if I'm on the show with someone who feels like they would like to wear one.
I actually just went to a hospital yesterday, so I can say that I got the temp thing put on me. Sat inside of. I was actually in ICU, so I can say I can tell you right now. You see, I'm walking, looking okay. Definitely do not have coronavirus.
You were in the ICU unit.
It's completely separate than COVID. See, that's a good thing. I want to drop a little thing on you.
Let's drop some knowledge. Let's hear it. Yeah.
So the way that it works right now, if you're going to visit someone in ICU, they can only have one visitor a day. Usually it's in and out, but because of COVID reasons, they can. COVID patients can't have anyone come see them right now.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what if you've already had COVID and you have the antibodies? Should you be allowed to go see that person?
You would think so, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not taking anything into the wing of the hospital they're doing.
No, you've already gotten the virus, and if you still have active antibodies, why can't you go see somebody who has the virus, right? Like, they have to make these tweaks to the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny because it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what kind of business you have, you're having to deal with repercussions because of what's going on with COVID.
No, that's a fact. And both of us have service industry jobs, so we've definitely had to face a lot of repercussions. And just to backtrack on this mask wearing stuff, for future guests, I have no problem wearing a mask around somebody who's vulnerable. I have no problems wearing a mask while I'm inside of a grocery store or at a gas station or at a hardware store or whatever the case may be. But if I'm around somebody who's healthy that doesn't feel like they need to wear a mask, I'm going to respect that too. And so that's another reason why both of us are not wearing masks right now. Anyway, Theo, tell me what has it been like being a small business owner in Austin? How did you get to the point where you're at?
Whew. Well,
that's a lot of stuff.
It was a lot, yeah, for sure. Well, for this current one that we're doing right now, it's a tiki bar located on 4th Street. We're underneath the Capitol Grill and Raw Sushi, and we've been open for about a little under a year right before we got the announcement 2 days before South by was supposed to happen, where they were shutting everything down.
So you opened right before.
Yeah, man. It had been a great year. We'd had the first holiday season where we had a bunch of events, got bought out multiple times. We're bought out by private companies for South by Southwest. And 2 days before the whole thing was supposed to go down, the Governor Abbott actually said.
Well, no, Mayor Adler canceled South by.
Was it Mayor Adler?
Yeah, Mayor Adler canceled South by.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, Mayor Adler canceled South by, and then. What was it? A week later, maybe 10 days later, he just shut down all the bars
altogether
at random without any notification at all. It went from, hey man, this is a disease from China. It's starting to spread in Europe, and it's people are getting it here and there in the U.S. And then boom, everything's shut down, and it just happened right out of nowhere. And there was no plan as to how you're going to help the people that you're putting out of work.
Nothing.
And people still had to pay bills and. There was no even real concrete data on how bad this virus was, and now we're shutting everything down. Of course you're going to get a negative backlash. There's no way that you wouldn't get a negative backlash for doing that.
Absolutely. And for us, we have it costs us a certain amount of money to run a business every single day. And that's not built in for a certain amount of time or certain by month. That's built in for the year. So every single day, if we're not open, it is costing us money.
How much is it costing you per day?
Just rent alone, that's going to be at least, I can't speak for everyone. I have a smaller place than most people. It's about $12,000 to $15,000 a month. Yeah.
So you're paying that out of your own pocket?
At this point, yeah, because I don't. For the first 3 months of the whole thing. I wasn't able to open. We got word that we could sell to-go stuff, but if you want to counting $60 of to-go drinks, anything worth helping you pay what you owe just in rent alone, not mind your insurance, the other TABC licenses and things you have to pay for.
So what exactly are those things, and what do you have to? What are your typical expenses as a bar owner?
You are constantly getting more and more, because the thing is, like, I just had a really good talk on another podcast about how a day that you don't have to pay another unexpected bill or have something go wrong is a very successful day for running a bar. So just built into like a daily cost of running a bar, I would say for mine, which is a smaller operation, probably $2,000 to $3,000
Per day?
per day. Yeah. And that's running at a minimal staff. That's not even considering that at this point I'm having to, if I'm opening up at 50%, I'm only employing about 25% of my actual staff to try and get by and keep the head above water through the whole thing.
Okay, what about like the permitting and regulatory fees that you have to pay? How does that work?
That's on a yearly basis, so that was already paid up front and things like that. So that's not one that we worry about as much. But really, it's the day-to-day operations, man. And I can't imagine what running a restaurant would be like if you're having to employ cooks, hostesses, pay for all your supply and overhead as far as what you're serving. Alcohol is very expensive if that's what you're selling too.
Yeah, did you guys get any PPP loans on this side?
We did, yeah. Lucky for us, we did, and that definitely kept us afloat for sure. After it ran out really fast. I mean, most of it just ended up going to we had to give a certain percentage to employees' salaries and stuff like that. The rest of it just went straight towards rent. It was crazy. At the time, we didn't have a great landlord, so it was like we would try and reach out to him. He obviously knew the situation, but we had a very easy time getting a hold of his attorneys. But at no point did he ever
you get a hold
respond
of
to us.
him? Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Crickets on that.
And that's kind of crazy because nobody, like, you're not going to get any other tenant right now during COVID, so why not just keep the relationship with what you have?
You would think you would try and solidify that, maybe work with them knowing that they're not operating a business. But yeah, no, to be redirected to an attorney, that's a very frustrating thing as someone who's a very loyal tenant, someone that pays on time. Someone who
and you're a pretty responsible human being. I've known you for a while. You're not trashing the place. Your customers aren't trashing the place.
Man,
people that come into that bar are like, it's not like hood or trashy at all. Like, these are, like, good
I
people that
think
come
more
in there.
often than not by my friends and other bar owners, they accuse me of, I think my nickname is Danny Tanner, because I think that the successful bars, when they do well, they don't smell like shit. You definitely walk in and it's the cleanliness, I think, does more than anything. No, these bars don't differentiate than the other. Nothing separates them, but I think that if you maintain a sanitary place, someone once compared it to sleeping with a girl one time. They said a lot of people can, or sleep, whatever you prefer to sleep with. Not, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you can do it one time, anyone can do that one time. If you can get them to continue to want to come back, I think that comes from maintaining a cleanly place and running it the right way.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
So how was the first month of reopening? What was that first month when things went when they just said, hey guys, we're having the bars at 25-50%? Like, what was that month like?
That was an impossible, weird month to try and operate. I think at the time, I don't think everybody was ready to come back out at that time. So I can say we were pretty much opening, even at the capacity they were letting us have. There was no way of sustaining anything while we were doing
financially,
that.
right?
Everything was going towards paying the employees.
Because I feel like when I was out, I feel like the people that were downtown, they really wanted to be there, so they spent money and they tipped really well, and they were like the best. Like, that's what it felt like. I felt like when you're out there, you're surrounded by the best people possible. Like that first month.
One thing I can say is these people appreciate being back out, and I honestly, as a person that's like doing things for them, I miss doing that for them. Like, that's one thing like I can say, and that's a weird thing to say when you go into jobs and sometimes just are not looking forward to the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel about giving pedicab rides. I love it. Like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to have to feel like I have to do it until I die, but I would love to be able to give pedicab rides in the weekends until I'm an old man. You know, like, it's a awesome job.
I had one of the best conversations I had with a really good friend at his house over a really good mezcal. He asked me what I miss most about bartending. And it was funny because I had to think about it for a little bit, but what I realized was it's exactly what we're doing. It's having good conversations with people about important issues, not knowing where they're going to go, but not worrying about it, and just knowing that you're going to be able to talk to anyone that walks through the doors of your establishment.
It's important. It's really important.
Yep.
So were you worried about like the virus at all when things started opening back up again? Like, how did you feel? How did your staff feel? Like, how did that whole thing go? Because
well, the thing is, so when you're gonna open back up at 25 to 50%, you can't bring the entire staff back. So
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing we did. I reached out to everyone. I wanted to. One thing we put in the email was whether you want to come back to work and have things to pay for. We understand that point of view.
Because a lot of your staff might be making more on unemployment at the time.
At the time, they definitely were. And think about that. If you're going to open back up at 50%, those guys, they're still 50% unemployed. So don't want to say I encourage them to stay on it, but they're going to be, if they were making more money than they were initially, and I knew them coming back at that kind of capacity was going to make them less money too, I'm going to tell them to do them at this time, you know? I don't know what the pandemic's going to bring. I don't know if they're going to shut us down again, which I honestly, when they did reopen things, I half expected there to be a random, that we were just waiting on the text to see when they might shut us down again.
Yeah, and I also, that's why I feel like people like Bob, Woody, and Brandon Cash just packed their bars because they knew, and they're like, well, hey, every man for themselves. We're getting what's ours. Let's do it. And they were, I mean, I hate to say it, but they were actually the smart ones when it came to this.
I couldn't agree with what you just said there more, because the way that I thought of it was like it's the Wild Wild West. You know, they're not TABC laws to enforce. The cops weren't out there watching these bars to make sure of that.
No, and we were having race riots at the same time.
At
too,
the same time,
yeah.
There was a lot going on here. So these bars opened up, and you know, it was, as a bar owner trying to open up a responsible place, make sure there was seating only. That was your one thing the only thing that bothered you about those guys doing that is that they could possibly get everybody shut down, which, I mean, kind of did happen.
But, I mean, it wasn't really just bars in Austin. Like, this was throughout the whole state.
It was throughout the state.
And most of the people that got the virus really badly, you know, and most regions where the hospitals were overwhelmed were not in Austin anyway. They were in Houston, they were in, like, Laredo and down in the valley, and it was a whole different demographic of people. So you can't even blame, like, those Austin bars for the reason we shut down at all.
It's hard to, and I think one thing that I noticed about the people that were out, man, I think they were the people that were less susceptible to actually catching the more serious cases of COVID. And I think the stance that I felt I was most comfortable with opening back up was that's who we were going to be seeing.
Yeah, because they were young people who were probably in shape, and those people were also not doing any real social distancing anyway.
Yeah, either way.
So they probably already were exposed to the virus when you really think about it.
Yes.
So, yeah, there isn't a point to be made about that. I honestly think that the protests were really what spread that virus, more so because the people that were doing the protesting, they were wearing masks and they did their best to be cautious.
Yes.
But those were the people that were staying home, that were not out and about, that didn't build their immune systems, that were not, like, socializing with people during the pandemic. And now all of a sudden, you know, you're
screaming, you're
and
yelling,
now you're
around
screaming,
all
yelling,
these
and you're
people.
around a whole bunch of people that are total strangers while you're getting tear gassed.
Yeah.
So,
and then you go home.
And then you go home.
And who knows who you live with?
Yes. And so I always thought that those first week of protests were what spread the virus, but it's very hard to say that because you can't conclusively prove
I think
what
everybody
happened,
wants to be pointing the finger and blaming it on everyone that started it. Man,
I'm not blaming it. I'm just saying that that's a possibility that we should all look into.
I think I watched Donnie T go on a little weird statement about saying that he was at a restaurant and he watched waiters messing with their masks and pulling them up and down, and that's what was to be blamed for some things that he was worried about going to restaurants. So I think at the end of the day, accountability is something that people don't want any part of right now when it comes to this.
They don't, and it's very sad. And if we don't have accountability to ourselves,
you have to,
and the people around us, the world that we're going to live in is going to be horrible.
Yeah, I just on all aspects of life, one thing that I think, and I think that has been the most disappointing thing to me is the lack of anybody wanting any kind of accountability for this.
And it's weird too when you go online and you go on the internet, everyone is so hateful and divisive towards one another.
Yeah.
But then when you're in person, everyone's like actually like almost the opposite. Like they really want to go out and help one another. So it's a dichotomy.
People don't act like they. That's one thing a lot of people have talked to me about what the behavior has been like of the people that have come back out since I guess this is a third weekend that we've now been open that's just come up. No, I mean, I think everyone's just so glad to have the opportunity to come back out after being completely shut down for about 3 months. We got well-behaved people. Have had no issues with Karen mask wearers or anything.
No, not
like
at all.
that.
And I see a lot less fights downtown.
Yeah.
The people are a lot more respectful. You know, when you're out. And
I think when you have I think when you have something you have that you love that much taken away from why you moved to this city, yeah, you treat it with a little more respect and love.
Yeah, one of my criticisms about shutting down these bars and the fact that no one's trying to like push for supporting these establishments is that our bars, our nightlife, our live music venues, they are the reason why people visit. They're the reason why people come here for their bachelor parties. They're the reason why corporations have conventions here. Yeah. And they're the reason why a lot of people ultimately decide to move here.
Yeah.
And for the city to do nothing to help these industries that they deliberately shut down, it's a slap in the face to the city of Austin. It really is.
A little bit, yeah. It feels like that sometimes, too. And like I said, I was just talking to you earlier about getting a hold of landlords or things like that, and that is very difficult. But to talk to attorneys, easy, man, very easy to get a hold of those guys.
It's very easy. But anyway, so what was the process of reclassifying as a restaurant? Like, how did
so it's a 45-day wait that you have to go through. We initially had a mixed beverage permit, so we were operating just solely as a bar. 51% was coming through the liquor sales for sure. With that, you either had to establish that you were going to have a kitchen built on premise, which that's expensive.
As fuck.
Just a grease trap alone, it's going to run you $15,000-$20,000.
Yeah, and not everybody can afford that.
Yeah, not everybody can afford that, especially given the times, given whether you've maintained paying rent. I think I read some random stat that like 90% of bars in New York City didn't pay rent in August. So how are you going to just buy a $15,000 grease trap and build an entire restaurant inside of a bar?
No, you can't.
They tried to change that and say that if you could establish the food truck was going to be on premise and do your food at the times, that was a feasible option. So
even if you weren't at the 51%.
Even if you weren't, just as long as you could show that you were going to have a food truck on premise,
and you were going to try to do
you were going to try and do that. I think at the end of the day, they're going to try and keep you as close as a 51%, but they're going to be they have to be lenient on this. And we can't sell enough cheeseburgers to negate.
No, or you're going to sell the cheeseburgers for $20. Yeah, do some weird accounting. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Do you want us? Yeah. Are you looking for people to cook books and make things disappear through that type of thing, or do you want them to run it on? What I was hoping they would do was let us partner up with other businesses that were around the area, let us sell their food, because I mean, I'm not trying to build a shitty pizza place inside of one of my bars.
But the food truck thing is probably good, and some of these places now even you could just. They'll buy frozen food and just sell frozen food out of there.
They don't care what they're doing, man. I was blown away by looking at some of the bars and restaurants' Instagrams. I can't believe they would post that food on the internet. Because, dude, I've made better DiGiorno pizzas. And so for me to sit here and think that, like, I was seeing hilarious memes of, like, COVID coming at people, and they just grabbed a cheeseburger and a beer and put it down, and then all of a sudden got deflected off of the cheeseburger and the beer. Cause
that's how you fight COVID, bro.
Obviously, that's how it goes, man. Cheeseburgers and beers.
Cheeseburgers are how you fight the coronavirus. That's a scientific fact. Yeah. And just you don't have to wear your mask at the table. You only wear your mask when you go into the restaurant, and then once you sit at your table, then you don't have to worry about COVID anymore.
That's what happens. Yeah, that's another thing. If it's coming at you, sit down at a table and you're cool.
Yeah, and grab a cheeseburger.
Yeah, if you're lucky, just to
fight it. Sit at a table, grab a cheeseburger.
It's like the vampire garlic thing in a fucking steak. Yeah, no, that's how we're fighting this thing. But it's funny because when you go out, I mean, what I'm noticing about most of the places they're opening is they're not staying open past midnight. Just because after midnight you're dealing with The Walking Dead.
A lot of people. I've been downtown there are a lot of spots that are staying open past.
Oh no, you're right, and let them do their thing. But for me, like, it's just not. It's not worth the business. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the possibilities of what might come up. And for some reason, people think that when they go like this and start yelling what they're trying to tell you, that's a good thing to do when you're at a bar. So it's a funny thing to be around after midnight for sure. And we just, as a business, as an establishment, we decided to let some other places.
Are you guys doing better now that y'all are back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not doing worse. We're definitely not doing worse. The food truck that we're having out there, it used to be parked off South First. It's called Hawaiian Nay, and they are killing it for us. I think that we're still only able to operate at 50%.
No, 75 now.
Well, 75 now it's not a huge place that I have now. So the capacity at my place right now is 120.
So now you can operate about like 95 or something?
95 people in there, yeah,
that's fine.
Give or take.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably what you're normally going to get anyway.
Yeah, on a given night, yeah, you're very right.
Most places, 75% really means full.
For sure.
Because most bars, with the exception of Unbelievable and Buford's and like your Green Light Socials and stuff, like
some of the bars on 6th Street just pack those places out, man.
Yeah.
And it's funny because
But how come like Matt, like if all you need to do is have a food truck, right, and pay a 700, don't you have to only pay like a $700 fee and that's it?
Yeah,
and get a food truck.
that's what it is.
But if that's like all you need to do, why aren't these other bars opening?
A lot of places just don't want to put their staff or themselves at risk of having to deal with it. I mean,
But then they must have so much money saved up, or they're being owned by a giant conglomerate. It doesn't make sense.
you're probably right. They're probably tied to other establishments that are up and running and doing okay and able to sustain them. I was reading about some of the grants that the live music places got as well. I think
They barely got anything, though, dude. They barely got anything. The mayor was trying to scrounge change together to get grants for these people, but meanwhile, you want to spend $7 billion on a rail system that's going to be obsolete by the time it gets finished.
Yeah,
and then you want to spend over $1 million trying to expand the convention center. When guess what? If these live music venues aren't around, if our local bars go out of business, nobody's going to want to come here for a convention, Steve.
100%.
And they shouldn't.
No, nor should they. What's your take on what they're talking about with South by?
What is it? It's like 5 days now, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. 5 days. They're saying they're gonna do it mostly virtual, but try and have a few places
they're gonna have some in-person events. But no, if you do a virtual South by and you don't do this in person, there's no big South by Southwest.
Yeah, what's the draw?
We don't have there will be no more shop for us to go back to.
Yeah, it's crazy because that will mark like the year of the shutdown of everything. I guess if that does or doesn't happen.
Yeah, you can't do. They have to have a full South by, but at the end of the day, that's not even Adler's say.
No,
that's the look. Adler, I really dislike him, and I used to like him as a person, like a lot back, a year or so ago when I ran for mayor and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I criticized him, but I gave him my belt. Like I didn't have a problem with him as a human being, but the whole way in which he's handling this virus and the fact that he's basically turning his back on all of these he's basically turning his back on Austin, if you really want to get technical. I can't respect that. I can't respect him as a human being anymore. I really can't do it.
It's hard to respect a lot of these politicians and look at them as human beings with them trying to shut things down when they're like in the middle of deciding whether they're going to be giving money out to things like that's just
and then you're not giving any money to help any of these venues. Our shop owner has to still pay permitting fees for all of these cabs, even though more than half of them aren't even being used right now.
That's
not fair. That is not right. That is not right. That's what's happening. So it's like
I think that comes back to the accountability.
If you want to keep us safe and if you're worried about public health, well, then incentivize people to actually take proper public health precautions. And if you're not doing that, then your words are hollow and there's got to be another agenda behind what you're doing.
The frustration that comes when you're trying to run a business and do it properly and pay all your permits and do what you can, knowing that you're operating at a lower capacity, it's frustrating.
Yeah, and then some homeless guy could just pitch a tent in the middle of the street right next to your bar. The whole thing just adds up because it also just creates a bunch of anti-homelessness because you're a business owner trying to go through. You have to pay what is it? You're paying $3,000 a day for rent for your stake. Okay, so you're paying close to $90,000 a month just to operate your business.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to go through all types of hoops and all types of fees, and you're told that you can't operate and that you can't do a whole bunch of stuff. But meanwhile, hey man, if you want to go pitch a tent and start panhandling, hey, it's all good. It's totally fine.
That's okay.
And then, of course, what do you expect people's reactions to be?
On both sides, yeah. On both sides.
What do you expect?
Yeah. No, for us, it is so, and that's not to say that our businesses are already affected by homelessness. I'm not one to sit here and I feel for the situations that people find themselves in.
Same here, dude. I don't like how the police used to treat our homeless before the ban got overturned.
Yeah.
But you got to do something. What the city's doing right now is not working, and if they don't provide meaningful solutions to reduce our homeless population, that ban is going to get reinstated, and I'm not going to care.
No, very quick. And I think, for what you do in your industry, people don't. I notice less people out from when I have. I've lived here and ran. I think when we first met each other, and Rainy Street was kind of opening up, and I was running the Stoney's pizza truck. It was crazy to see the difference in the amount of people that are out nowadays since the homelessness has kind of taken over than prior to that.
You think it's less? I think it's a little bit less, right?
I do, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it is definitely less. And I don't blame him as a person. It's tough to be walking around, and as a person that's walking down here at all different times of the day and hours, if I'm bombarded by people asking me for money, and I'm not one to not help out the less fortunate because I donate to food banks and to all kinds of things.
And it also, it's good for your karma. Doing a job like this, you want to give back to get those good vibes so that when you're selling things, people give you money. Like there's a science behind all that stuff. So you got to help.
Yes.
But at the same time, it can get overwhelming when there's a million people just asking for change all the time.
Very, yes. Standing in front of places that you own or run, asking those people that are walking in, I mean, it makes them less likely to come back to your place if they get hit up for $1 or $2 when they're walking up to you to try and get a drink or a piece of pizza or something.
Yeah, or when they're leaving the bar, it's like, oh, great, I got to deal with these fucking crackheads. Like, you're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You'll go to Rainy Street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to go to West 6th.
Very
You
much,
don't see
yes.
as much. So
It's crazy how the policing is different on Rainy and 6th Street, and they kind of keep them further away from the bars around what's referred to as Dirty 6th Street by the locals. Yeah, just totally different type of policing. That's a whole nother day's story for sure.
It's insane.
Yeah. What's your take? There's a lot going on with the police too.
I mean, I think that that's another problem, man. Like, I think our police officers need to be more accountable. But if you're going to defund a police department, first of all, put that money into the venues that are hurting the most from the shutdowns, like the bars and the music industry and the servers and the bartenders and whatnot, which you did nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
Right? And second of all, we're the fastest growing city in America, or one of them. Why are we removing officer positions? Why are we cutting money for training when, if you saw the Mike Ramos video, that guy got shot because the cops aren't trained well enough? But you're going to cut more money for training? You're going to see more of this stuff happen.
Yes. I think training is the biggest thing that is what they're lacking.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu should be a requirement for being a police officer. You should have to train consistently
in
order to be a cop.
I cannot tell you how many times before we got to the Tiki Bar, I've managed multiple bars on 6th Street. There are, and we had to throw people out of bars plenty of times. We had to get physical with them plenty of times. There are ways of doing it. See, here's a really funny story that I got into with someone is the resisting arrest charge. That's a really funny charge because I think that kind of gives police a little pass on being a little more rough with you. And I've tossed a bunch of people out of a lot of bars, never had to be that kind of physical at any point with any of them. It's a weird.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. There's ways of getting people out of bars.
Dude, remember that one time that we went out when I went out with your boss?
Oh yeah, vaguely. Do you remember that?
I kind of remember that drunk guy just started attacking. Remember some big fucking 300-pound drunk guy just started. I mean, I don't know how drunk he was, but he started fucking attacking me for no fucking reason.
For no reason, yeah.
And so I just at first I was kind of confused. I was like, is he like trying to be friends with me? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this guy's like attacking me.
This is not a friend for sure.
Yeah. So then I just fucking pieced him up, hit him with a 3-punch combo.
Yeah. He got him the 3-piece.
Yeah. He fucking fell. He fell back into the chair. And you know what I did right afterwards? I just walked out of the bar.
Yeah.
I walked out of the bar like nothing happened. You know
Call
why?
it a night, yeah.
Because there was no reason to do anything else.
No,
Like
that's a wrap on the day.
Yeah,
Where were we that night? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it was was it Maggie Mays or
it was
Maggie Mays?
Yeah.
It was Maggie Mays. Yeah. Dude, that was insane though.
Yeah. Are you still doing that? When I last talked to you, you were
Still training and stuff. Yeah, I'm still training. I'm not
Sure.
like trying to take any fights or anything like that. I have like. I'm trying to be a city council candidate.
Yeah,
there's so much stuff I'm doing. I want to make a living. I want to own stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, to do that as a career and dedicate your entire life to that when you're like in your 30s.
It's tough to walk into meetings with cauliflower ear and black eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the cauliflower isn't going to change, but I don't really want to have black eyes on a consistent basis, or
sure.
not even that, dude. I just don't want to have to feel as though I have to push my body to horrible lengths all the time.
Yeah.
With nothing to gain for it.
With the did you have to shut down once all the bars did and stuff? Was
there
there
was
any
no
point to you
point
coming
to
in? Yeah, I was
being
gonna
out
ask.
there.
Yeah, for sure. Was anyone out?
No.
I actually rode my bike
Absolutely
around some
not.
of those nights, yeah, and all you saw, like we were talking about, it was homeless people. It was a weird thing to ride around downtown when it was shut down.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Super fucking weird.
Yeah, it felt like a
The whole thing
zombie
is-
movie a little bit for sure.
Yeah, it's really awkward.
Yeah, because we were going back to the bar and we had all kinds of things to maintain. I actually got reached out to a couple people who, this was a crazy thing that started happening. People started getting themselves tested for COVID and seeing if they were okay with me letting 10 of their friends do it too, and then having like parties where all of the members knew that they were COVID free.
I mean, that sounds responsible.
I read where some bars in New York that were high end did that too, made lots of money doing it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's ways nowadays where there's faster ways of doing it.
Well, you have to do better with the testing, but the problem too is now In England, they're testing constantly, but people are just not even staying home when they test positive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to. How do you even enforce that stuff?
No, you can't.
You can't unless you create like a big tech, big brother type of police
Yeah,
state.
then it goes
and
to
then,
Orwell.
and then COVID should not be used to institute an Orwellian lifestyle at all. So
I think there's enough people that already think that's why it's being implemented to go along.
I mean, would you be surprised though? Like, I'm not here trying to peddle conspiracy theories, but like, would you be surprised if, creating an Orwellian type of government and destabilize national currencies in order to create a global currency is like kind of what they want as a result of this virus?
I mean, if I was living it in an Austin Powers movie, I think fear and paranoia would be the way I went about doing it for sure.
Yeah. Like, if I wanted to create a global currency, this is like the perfect way to create a global currency.
Absolutely. Hey, yeah, we're going to give you money. You're going to get this much per month, and but it's not going to be in your bank account. This is a card we're going to give you now. It's connected to your phone.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And also, the more you have to shut down because of the more a country has to shut down, right? The more they have to print money to give to people, and then the more in debt the country goes. And then if a country gets into enough debt and they have to default on their debt, well, guess what? Your currency is useless. And so if enough countries have to go through that, then ta-da, you got a global currency now. And that is really dangerous. And that, I think, is a lot more dangerous than the after effects of whatever virus.
Yeah, which are still coming. There's new side effects to it every day.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think that you'd almost rather let the pandemic take its course in the worst way possible than create a global currency, because that's going to have a lot more problems in the long term.
Yeah, I think people are really freaking out about the amount of control that they may lose over what's going on with all this. I think that terrifies me more than a lot of things.
And that's why you got to vote in your local election.
100%.
So where do you live, Theo?
Right now, I've got a duplex off of Burleson and Oltorf.
Okay.
Yeah, District 2, I think, is what I'm in.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
And I've actually been looking into the ways of going about the early voting, because I think I'm going to get in there before all of the hoopla and stuff starts for sure.
Well, look, I'm gonna tell you this, man. So there's 4 candidates in this race. Okay. There is David Shinkanshin, Vanessa Fuentes, myself.
Your district 2?
Yeah, I'm just shooting. And then there's another guy named Casey Ramos, who is a professional boxer.
Have you met all these people?
Yeah, well, I've met Casey Ramos in person.
Okay.
Who I actually really like a lot.
Nice.
And he says a lot of stuff that's pretty similar to myself. But when it comes to voting, do not vote for David or Vanessa.
Okay.
Do not do that. David is this guy Pierre Renteria's chief of staff, and he's just in the pockets of big developers.
Pio catches a bad rap for sure.
Yeah. So he's Pio Jr.
Yeah.
And he's Pio Jr. And then Vanessa is Delia Garza's protege, and Delia has literally been instituting policies that have caused rampant homelessness, made people feel unsafe with the policing, and she's also played an instrumental role in gentrifying the living shit out of Austin.
No, you had my vote when you ran for mayor, and I would not be sitting here next to you if I wasn't planning on voting for you when I do in this upcoming election.
You're a true hero.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, listen, we're gonna probably wrap this up. Charlie and Gary, they have to get out of here. Our producers, they have another meeting.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this.
This has been great. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah,
I feel like we really talked about a lot of really good and positive stuff.
Yeah, can't wait to come back and do it. Yeah, I actually had some friends start one of my own that I want you to come on. It's called Attaboy Einstein. But
I would love to, dude.
Yeah, for
Keep
sure.
me posted and let me know. I would love to come on there.
Cool.
All right.